All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's episode, we'll be looking at must-add for week 1 of the fantasy hockey season. It's here. It's back. These are definitely my favorite episodes, kind of help you guys who's the best player to be picking up every single week. We'll go into which teams are going to be playing the most every single week, which teams are playing the less. Some of the pickups are going to be for people in 10 to 12-man leagues. Some of the pickups are going to be for guys in 16 to 18-man leagues. We're going to try to do it all. It is the first week. There's only been a couple games recording this Friday morning, so I've only got 5 players, but we'll still get into those. Before we get into players, as always, the video presented by FanDuel Canada. Shout out FanDuel Canada. North America's #1 sportsbook, the best place to be placing any hockey bets for this moment. And if you like to bet on the NFL, college football as well, definitely the best place to be betting there too. So that link is in the description below to download. Let's get into the 5 players to add after the first couple games of the NHL season. All right, so the first guy we're going to be adding, and to really no one's surprise, it's going to be Dylan Guenther on the Utah Hockey Club. He's been unbelievable. If you need a goal scorer, if you need goals, this is the guy you're going to want to pick up. He's currently 48% rostered, so his name's obviously, like, people are aware of who he is, but his shooting talent has been incredible so far. 4 goals on only 8 shots, so a shooting percentage of 50%. That will come down to earth. That will definitely come down to earth, but still, he's playing on that second line with Logan Cooley and McBain. He's obviously the premier goal scorer on that line. He has a goal on the power play as well, playing on that first unit. I think there's a lot to like about Dylan Guenther. There's a lot to like about Utah. I wasn't very high on this team in the preseason compared to everyone else. Same with Connor Ingram as well. But 2 wins so far, a really gritty win against the Islanders on Thursday night too, where he scored the OT winner and a goal in regulation too. So I think this is definitely one of your better pickups, or I guess you could say highlighted pickups for the week, but don't think he's going to be scoring 4 goals every 2 games. That's not going to happen, but I definitely can see him scoring 30 goals by the end of the year. All right, a guy I talked about in the preseason, Victor Olofsson on the Vegas Golden Knights, 10% rostered, playing that left wing on the first line with Jack Eichel and Ivan Barbashev. This is being recorded Friday morning, remember, so not going to have the stats from the St. Louis game that Vegas will be playing tonight, but that first game against Colorado, Vegas scored 8 goals. Their offense looked awesome. Pretty much every line was firing, but Victor Olofsson definitely stood out. The 2 goals he scored, I thought were very, very, very nice. The first goal he scored, obviously, both of them were short side, but that one, I don't even think Georgiev saw it. And then the other one, just mano a mano. You could see Georgiev honestly just put his hands up after Olofsson just ripped it by him. This is a guy I talked about in the offseason because he is a premier goal scorer when he's given the opportunity. He never really got that in Buffalo. He did sometimes, but I don't think there was ever a consistent stretch where he was playing, first line, second line minutes. He did only play 13 minutes in that first game. Not sure how much he played in the third period, considering how much they were up. He's not a guy that you're going to want to have on the ice when you're up 3 to 4 goals. Like, he's just a goal scorer. But when Vegas is in tighter games, I'm sure he's going to be playing a lot more. Shooting talent has ranked in the top 15 some of the seasons he played on Buffalo. He's had 20-plus goal seasons, and I think this year he's up for a 30-plus goal season. If you look at the spot he's playing in on that line with Eichel and Barbashev, that's where Marchessault scored 42 goals last season. I don't want to put him up to Marchessault's caliber for sure, but I think he isn't giving an opportunity like Marchessault kind of has. And this is it right here. Bruce Cassidy said he gets the first crack at it. He impressed in preseason. First game, he outscored 2 goals. I can't really see him being taken off this spot. So love Victor Olofsson, just 10% rostered, a guy I would have on my team in any pretty much league if you're higher than 12 man league and up. So Victor Olofsson, definitely a guy to be adding this week. All right, another guy, Connor Zary on the Calgary Flames, had a very good opener against the Vancouver Canucks, ended up scoring the OT winner, actually. He's a guy I talked about in the preseason as well, and it's mainly because the role that he's been put in here by Ryan Huska, playing on that I don't even know what line you want to call it. You call it the second line. It's not the Kadri line, so we'll call it the second line with Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman. He's going to be in a position to score every single game because he plays with guys who grind their dick to the nub every time they're on the ice. Blake Coleman is one of their best penalty killers. He's a grinder. Backlund is his size might deceive you, but he's a grinder at the center position. A guy who could get a lot of shots on net as well. So you have Connor Zary. He's like the goal scorer of the group. You remember a couple years ago, this line had Mangiapane in Connor Zary's role. Mangiapane had a 30-plus goal season, his only 30-plus goal season. This line also, first game against Vancouver, they had a 100% expected goals for percentage when they're on the ice. That is insane. Obviously, that's not going to carry over, but it just goes to show how well this chemistry is built and how quickly it's built. So I think Connor Zary is going to be a huge player for the Calgary Flames. Now, Flames only have 2 games next week, so I don't think you necessarily have to run and go get him right now, but I can sincerely say and think that Connor Zary is a guy who could lead the Flames in points this year with 60 to 70 points. All right, this next one's a really interesting one. Anthony Beauvillier on the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's 3% rostered. he gets the Crosby bump. Playing on that first line with Crosby, he gets the Crosby bump. What's interesting is the first game that they played, where they got absolutely dominated by the New York Rangers. Drew O'Connor was mainly playing on that first line, but they switched it. I'd want to say midway through that game, and for the entirety of the Red Wings game, Raquel is now on that first line as well. So either of these guys, I think, are viable to pick up. Beauvillier, first round pick in 2015, had some pretty good years with the Islanders, got traded to Vancouver in the Bo Horvat deal, moved over to Chicago, didn't really have a good year, was kind of floating around last year. He's been a 30 to 40 point guy, 20 plus goal guy just once in his career. But you probably could have said a lot about the same guys who have played with Crosby. Let's say a guy like Chris Kunitz. I'm not sure off the top of my head what his stats were in Anaheim, but I'm sure they got bumped by about 20 to 30 points when he played with Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh. The one thing with Beauvillier, he hasn't had any power play time so far. He does have 9 shots on goal through 2 games. Out of players who have played 2 games, that's third most in the NHL. Only other players that have more, Braden Chen, David Pastrnak. I think he will get his power play chance, but if you're like, well, I need a guy who plays in the power play, then pick up Raquel. He's 17% rostered. He doesn't have any points. He has 2 shots on goal, but I'm sure that'll change. Beauvillier has just looked really good in these first couple games, and I don't know how Mike Sullivan doesn't give him a chance on the power play, considering he leads the team in goals with 2, both against Detroit. All right, my favorite pickup for next week is Alex Laferriere on the Los Angeles Kings. 2% rostered, really sneaky pickup here for next week. LA plays 4 games. They play Ottawa, they play Toronto, they play Montreal, and they play Anaheim. 2 out of those matchups are really favorable. Now, Laferriere last year, 23 points, 11 goals, played 81 games, averaged like 12 to 13 minutes on the ice per night. He's now playing on the first line with Adrian Kempe and Anze Kopitar. Kopitar scored a hat trick in that first game against Buffalo. He did get 1 assist. I did have Kopitar as a guy not to draft, so not a great start for that take. But I still think Laferriere is going to be a guy who's just going to be a total beneficiary of playing with Kempe and Kopitar. And there's probably going to be stretches where he has a couple games in a row with a couple goals because this is the first line. He is also playing on the first power play. LA is also going to be much more threatening offensively this year and aggressive just because they're switching from that 1-3-1 style over to I believe a 1-2-2. So I do really like what we saw from LA in that first game against Buffalo. Darcy Kemper definitely stood on his head, or at least from that first line. I think Laferriere is a guy who's 2% rostered. I don't know another guy who's 2% rostered who plays 4 games next week, is on the first line and the first power play. If you look at what Byfield did last year, he had 55 points, 20 goals. This is exactly the role he was in. Playing on the first line with Kempe and Kopitar for the majority of the season, playing the first power play. I think Laferriere gets his opportunity here. He had his second most time on the ice in this game against Buffalo, in his first game against Buffalo of his career, playing almost 17 minutes. He played over 17 minutes just once last year. So obviously there's a little bit more trust in him this year. I think he's a player that can go both, can play 2 ways, is why he can stay on the ice for this long, or he played 17 minutes in that first game. So he is a sneaky pickup and a guy I think could score 20 goals this year as well if he stays on his first line. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of the first week of Must Add. Shout out to FanDuel Canada for sponsoring the video. If there's any other guys that I missed, any other videos that you guys want to see throughout the fantasy hockey season, just drop them in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.